Now he's being asked to register.
All right, perfect. Are we live?
Not yet. Hold on.
And Teresa, I believe that somebody logged in because I gave my guys the link that you sent me.
Okay.
So I think the reason why you see 2 Larry Middletons is because the other one is Officer Jeff Etheridge.
Okay. All right, perfect. So we're just going to go ahead. Thank you for letting me know about that. We can update his name here shortly. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We are going Facebook Live, but we are working on that. And we also have a couple of panelists that are going to be joining us. So I just wanted to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Today is November 3rd. The time is now 6:02. And again, I just wanted to welcome all of you for being here with us tonight and joining us for our Southwest CPC meeting. Before we get started with our official business, I did want to go over a few housekeeping items. We are going Facebook Live as mentioned earlier, so I hope we can get that started here shortly. This is a recorded webinar where only panelists are able to speak and be seen. For those of you joining on our attendee list, thank you so much for being here with us tonight for this awesome topic. If you have any questions and or concerns or anything, please interact with us in the chat. You can also put your questions in the Q&A section where we will support you. We have Robbie, our secretary, as well as Andrea, who will be watching that, and Wanda. And if you are joining us on Facebook, once we go Facebook Live, please place your comments in the comment section, which we'll be keeping an eye out on that. So tonight's topic is homelessness is not always a choice or the fault of the unhoused or homeless. So we have several amazing panelists tonight. And so thank you all for being here that are on screen. We really appreciate you all taking the time to be with us tonight. And so with starting our official business, we will now have a roll call for our council meeting for our council members. So Jonathan Madison, our CPC co-chair. I see Jonathan here, so I'll just say that he's here. We have Robbie Vigil, CPC secretary. Like he's not logged on yet. Andrea Lester Young. Present, thank you. Wanda Harrisson.
Hello, everyone.
David Reza.
David here.
Chris Cedillo.
Here.
Hey, sir, nice to see you. Joseph Koloski. All right, so we have our roll call for our CPC council members. Thank you all for being here tonight. Now we're going to go ahead and move for the approval of October past minutes, where if there are no changes or any additions, is there a motion to approve the past minutes?
I make a motion to approve it. Chris Cedillo.
This is John Madison, I second.
Thank you very much. So the Southwest CPC past minutes are approved. Thank you all. Now we move for the approval of the November agenda. Are there any changes or any additions or a motion to approve the November agenda?
Approve.
All right, is there a second? Okay, thank you so much, Wanda. I see you. All right, so now we move on to our official business tonight. We are really grateful for y'all to join us tonight. We also have our Commander Espinosa, who will be giving us updates on the Southwest Area Command. Thank you, Commander Espinosa, for always supporting the Southwest CPC and being here with us tonight.
Thank you all for having me. I don't want to throw off the agenda too much, but I do have a quick announcement if it's okay.
Yeah, of course, go ahead.
So I would like to, first of all, thank you all for everything that you've done for Southwest CPC. I wanted to let everybody know that I am going to be retiring next month. December 18th is my last day. And that's the reason why we have Lieutenant us on the line. I think he just logged off because he was having some technical difficulties. But I wanted him to be able to introduce himself when he gets back on, if that's not too much of a problem before we get started with official business. But again, I think my time here with the Southwest and the ebb and flow that we've had with our CPC panel has been quite the roller coaster ride. For those of you who have been around since I've been around here almost 4 years now. But the way that the CPC has formulated, I believe, is the way CPC should be ran across the city, in my opinion. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the DOJ and the monitoring team and our executive administration on how well our CPC has been functioning and the purpose that it's been serving for our community here in the Southwest. And I just want to say thank you all for letting me be a part of it. I really appreciate everybody's hard work, those of you all on the panel and in the voting members. I know that you guys have dedicated, especially this last 6-8 months, a lot of time to make it what it is. And I just want to say thank you. And if the deputy chief, I think he logged on, Deputy Chief Brown, wants to go ahead and take it. And I don't know if Lieutenant Barrazas is on.
I'm here. Can you hear me, Commander?
Yes, sir. So I don't know
Okay,
if I introduced you, but yeah, so Lieutenant, he's going to be soon to be acting Commander. Barraza is going to go ahead. I'll let him go ahead and introduce himself.
Well, thank you, Commander. I appreciate the opportunity. Hello, I do apologize. I'm having technical problems with my phone and the video, so you won't be able to see my face, but soon enough, we'll be able to meet. I look forward to working with you all for the next several years. I've been very honored to be selected to be the acting commander for the Southwest until Commander Espinosa does leave and retire, which he's very deserving of. But a little bit about me, I have a little over 20 years with the Albuquerque Police Department. Most of my career, I've worked in the Southeast Area Command, and I look forward to working with all the board members, all the community members in the Southwest. I have a lot of extended family in the Southwest Area Command. So not only in the Southeast, but all over the city, I have a lot of family members, but I'm committed to working with everybody and making a difference and coming together to have some problem-solving strategies. Again, my name is Rene Barraza, and I'll be able to share my number at a later date. But again, I was honored to be selected and to be able to serve you all as the commander of the Southwest. And I hope I can fill the big shoes that Commander Espinosa has laid out for me. So thank you, Commander.
Well, thank you so much. We are really sad to see you go, Commander Espinosa, but we are really grateful for all you've done and all your support for the Southwest CPC. You will absolutely be missed, but we are very excited to work with Mr. Brown and moving forward with the Southwest CPC. So thank you both. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry to throw off the agenda. I just wanted to get that out of the way while I had you, and I look forward to tonight's topic.
Sure, no problem at all. And so we are Facebook Live now as we move forward. So those of you joining us on Facebook Live, welcome. We're so excited to have you part of our Southwest CPC. Please interact with us within the comment box. I will be keeping an eye on that. And so we welcome you for our Southwest CPC moving forward for our Southwest CPC meetings. And so with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start with our topic of discussion for the night. I'm going to hand this over to Wanda Harrisson, Andrea Lester, and also Robbie V. Hill in the topic at hand. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chair Garcia. Welcome, everyone. We're really excited to talk about this topic. It's a difficult topic. It's something that we have to address for our city because it's somewhat out of control, and hopefully we can find some solutions. So we'll start with a few introductions. So Sergeant Middleton, could you give us a face and introduce yourself, please?
Hi, guys. I'm Sergeant Middleton. I'm with the Southwest Area Command PRT. I've been with the Southwest since, I believe, the inception of PRT for the department. And I'm been a few CPC meetings, and I've been gone for the last few months because I was lucky enough to have a brand new baby boy. So I'm just getting back into the swing of things. Been about 2 or 3 weeks that I've been back. So go easy on me because I'm just starting to get back into the swing. So, and I'm glad to be a part of tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Officer Candelaria, could we see and meet you, please?
Hello, my name is Gabriel Candelaria. I work for Sergeant Larry Middleton. I'm one of his officers in the Southwest Area Command Prom Response Team. I believe I've met most of all you, but it's good to see you all. Hopefully soon we'll be back and having these meetings in person.
We're looking forward to that. And then it's Officer Dirthridge. I'm not saying that correctly because I don't have the spelling in front of me. Could we see and meet you, please?
Police department. I've been in the department 13 years. Most of that time has been in Southwest or Foothills. And I've been with the Southwest PRT team now for maybe a little, I think.
Okay. And then Glenn, would you please pronounce your name for me? I neglected to ask earlier.
That's okay. It's Glenn St. Onge.
Okay, thank you. Could you introduce yourself for us, please?
Absolutely. My name's Glenn. I'm a retired APD Lieutenant. I'm currently on contract with the county to run their lead program. So my title now is Program Manager for Lead.
Okay, and then Kevin, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Kevin Arthun. I have a few different hats. I work with the New Mexico Coalition in Homelessness in the Coordinated Entry Unit as the lead housing specialist. I also create and have organized and maintain the Albuquerque Coordinated Resource Guide. And then I've started an organization called Community Access Solutions as well.
Okay, thank you. We're going to swing back around and talk about your bathtub analogy in a little bit, okay? Rachel, could we hear about you, please?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I am Rachel Rodriguez, and I'm the Chief Development and Communications Officer for Hopeworks. And we are the largest provider of wraparound services to people experiencing homelessness in the state.
Thank you. Sergeant Middleton, can we start with you talking about your proactive team, your members, and your interactions with the unhoused on the west side? Is the Coors and Central still our major focus? What's happening?
Okay, so we actually are now trying to focus a little more on Coors and I-Lift. Just due to the city's uptick in the violent crime near the hotels and motels. So we have kind of shifted our focus in that area. The PRT team's approach when dealing with people in need is that when we do enforcement, we do a different approach. We try to do an outreach first approach, unless they're committing a violent crime at the time. So if we meet somebody, basically the best way I like to describe it is we try to get to the root cause of the issue. So if somebody is stealing diapers from the Walgreens for their children, do they need to go to jail or do they need resources to get diapers? And that's kind of our philosophy. If somebody's addicted to heroin or narcotics or alcohol, we would rather see them get services. And we work a lot with Glenn St. Onge with the LEAD program. I think for a while, we're leading in the entire department for LEAD referrals, if I'm not mistaken. We have a lot of connections. We get to know a lot of the people in need. We get to know them on a first name basis, and they feel that they're able to come up and talk to us because they know that our first approach is not enforcement, it's to try to help them out. So that's the way we've really been working it, and we really have had success at Corzine Central, which has allowed us to move to the area of Corzine High Lift.
Glenn, does that, when he says that he's working with you, is that outside of the LEAD program? You're able to help, or are all these individuals being moved into the LEAD program?
Yes, yes and no. So Sergeant Middleton's officers have given us a lot of lead referrals, which my case managers will go out and work with that individual when appropriate. Not everybody's appropriate for lead. We do have, criteria. But if Sergeant Middleton's officers or Sergeant Middleton thinks that person is appropriate, they can refer them to our program.
So if you do not find them appropriate, then are they getting referrals over to the Homeless Coalition or perhaps Hopeworks? Is there further referral if they don't work into the LEAD program?
So
I'm sorry, go ahead, Sarge.
Oh, no, I don't know who the question is directed towards.
Whomever would like to answer.
Well, I'll give it from my perspective, and then Glenn can piggyback off me. We have worked with First Nations actually for a while. That's one of the first groups we reached out to, and has been a big help to us before the LEAD program actually was developed. And when somebody doesn't have criminal charges against them, let's just say somebody walks up to me on the street and says, I just need help, and there's nothing they have that would give that would meet the LEAD program, for example, that's when we would get a hold of, for example, First Nations is one of them. Hopeworks is another one as well. But we have a list of a bunch of resources that we can reach out to try to get us help individuals who actually are requesting help.
Okay, could Officer Candelaria, could you give us some high points, some experiences? How are you working with the homeless? What would help you? What would you like to change? Anything in particular?
So in regards to the LEAD program specifically, I think the rate at which they respond to requests, it's super fast. We're working really good. I believe personally for mine, most of them have been turnovers, and that's not the fault of the program. I think it is the fault of the individual. I'm not going to use names, but I can think of 3 specifically that I referred, and they just stopped responding. They just stopped responding, and their complaint was, specifically in regards to the program, was that, oh yeah, they just were asking too much of me. And then there another couple, I believe they couldn't be found because they choose not to stay in the same place and they like to move around. And I believe the third, she said she was content and that she just didn't feel that it was something that she needed at this point. Right now, what we could really use is food, and I know it's going to get cold here soon. Probably blankets, because a lot of people that I run into personally, they don't like going to shelters. They've either had a negative shelter experience, they don't want to be around other people, whatever it may be. A lot of people don't like going to shelters and they prefer to stay on the streets even when it's cold. So blankets, and we get asked all the time for food, and it's kind of hard to track down food resources right now. In fact, we just went to the church at Glen Rio, I believe it was Glen Rio and Coors today, in hopes that they're going to be able to provide us with food, but unfortunately they weren't there, and we weren't able to stock up our stores with food to give these people.
So are you using the APD app 75-1 for people that you find sleeping on the street? Is that application working for you and your other proactive response team members?
It's situational dependent. We only use that app if we get a call about somebody sleeping on the streets and it's something that they don't really want outreach for. We'll contact them, and if, believe it or not, a lot of people, they don't want help. They just kind of want to be left alone. Whether it's due to narcotics, mental illness, a stigma with interaction with the police, whatever it may be. That would just be whatever the call comes out as, a 31S or perhaps a 31 or a down and out, and that call will stay logged accordingly. if somebody approaches me and they ask for some sort of resources, yes, we do try to log it in, especially when it's a planned outreach event. Sometimes we'll go and say specifically, we're going to devote this amount of time to provide either hygiene supplies, food, whatever it may be, to the transient population in the Southwest Area Command.
I hope to have more bags for you tomorrow. That will be my
Oh, that'd be
goal.
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. How about Officer Guthridge? I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Could you give us some of your experiences, please? Are you still with us?
Two members, most of his experiences are my experience, but it's the same. You know, some of the lead referrals we do, they just turn their like you said, program just the people that we refer. Again, they have the same points that a lot of people don't have. And then the things that we need, he said, is food, blankets, stuff like that, because he's right. People don't like going to shelters. It's very rare that we can get weed. They'd rather just take their chances for the night on the street. So if we had something and some sort of way to make sure they're warm for the night, so it's a good food for sure. We haven't had, I don't know, we haven't had food available in quite some time, I think. So anything like that would help.
Okay, we only got to hear a portion of what you said because you sounded like you were underwater. But Andrea, did you have something you wanted to ask?
Yes, thank you, Wanda. I appreciate that. Where can people donate food and blankets that are needed for the officers to provide to people on the streets? Is there a specific location that we need to donate it to, or how can we go about doing that?
The problem with, you can always donate to the Southwest Sub, but the problem with that is if we get inundative with thousands of pounds of food and clothing and stuff, we're not going to be able to get it out in time.
Mm-hmm.
During COVID, we did a fundraisers raising over, I believe, $25,000 of food, and we had a hard time getting handing out the food for resources because it is 3 of us at the Southwest Sub who's also having to do other activities on top of this. So you can always coordinate with me. I believe my email is available. If not, if you don't have it, I can put it in the chat and you can coordinate with me to make sure that we are going to be able to hand that stuff out. So I can try to get with other area commands that might as well need some resources. But if you have a small amount of food and resources, you can always drop them off at the Southwest Sub. But, you know, giving us a heads up would like to, because we have to take non-perishable foods and stuff like that. So
I always wonder how do they deal with it when they don't have a way to cook? You have to give something that doesn't need to be cooked also, correct?
well, you know, honestly, I've never had anything turned down that we try to give them that's free. A lot of times, like beef jerkies are really good. I believe the things you gave us the first time when you teamed up with that barbershop,
Mm-hmm.
was like, they loved that because it was it had like granola bars and it had beef jerky, and that stuff always works out really well. And then a can of beans is always something with a pull off top, is something that you could eat, doesn't need to be warmed up. That's just some ideas. When we were handing out the non-perishables, it was like trail mix, Gatorade, you know, little things of Cheez-Its and stuff like that. That's kind of what we're more leaning towards. It's a lot easier because if you just do canned foods, obviously they're not going to be able to cook corned beef hash or something like that.
Right. Okay, thanks. We'll see what we can do to help out in that area, especially since it seems to have been very successful for you and the officers working our area here in the Southwest. Officer Middleton or Sergeant Middleton, are all your officers in the PRT trained in the LEAD? Does that require special training?
I get some confused with the LEAD. Oh, I'm sorry, lead. I'm sorry. Got it. Like I said, give me a minute. I'm just getting back into things. Yes, so we took a class, 40, I believe it was 40 hours or an 8-hour class. No, it was a 16-hour class on the lead program. And then Glenn St. Onge actually reached out to me and asked me, he bought me lunch because he knew that would get me to talk. And he bought me lunch and he let me vent about what I don't like about the program. And ever since we had that conversation, he came in and has made a lot of changes. And he sat down and actually had a conversation with my officers. And we went from like, I think we had 2 lead referrals in a whole year to, I think we've had like 8 to 10 lead referrals, because Glenn sat and told us that it's not as difficult as the training made it to be. So yes, we do have training, and now there is an SOP that all officers are aware of with the lead program as well.
Okay, so Glenn, then did I understand that you train the Bosco, the Bernalillo County Sheriff deputies in the lead program? And is it basically the same as just the deputies do it or the officers do it, the APD does it?
Yes, exactly. So when LEAD first rolled out about 2 years ago, we got all the PRT teams trained up. So all the PRT officers in each area command are all trained in LEAD. And with BCSO is with the Sheriff's Department, all of their uniformed officers are trained in LEAD 100%. And I just finished that on November 1st for the last class for LEAD. And that was one of our grant requirements, was to train at least 90% of the officers for both departments by the end of our grant period in 22 or 23, I'm sorry.
Okay, Andrea?
Yes. Hi, Glenn. So since the program has started, what percentage of arrests have become a part of the diversion program?
So percentage of arrests, you mean like how many people are actually deferred? Like
Yes.
Okay. So I believe last month we're averaging about 20 to 30 referrals a month right now citywide. And I think the last count out of that 30 was 24 were actually true diversions. And then 6 of them were social referrals, meaning the sergeant touched on a little bit. There were no charges present, but the officer felt that this person could benefit from the LEAD program, so they did a social referral. Right now we have 27 active clients, and since being involved in our program, there's been 0 recidivism. So they're working towards getting clean. They haven't been rearrested. So we're starting to show the efficacy of the program as we go forward.
Perfect. Well, you just answered the second part of my question. So that's actually great. I'm very glad to hear that.
I think you mentioned a federal grant. Did I understand that there's a $1 million federal grant spread over 3 years for personnel and housing for the homeless? And so I'm curious, if Albuquerque has a housing shortage, how is that money being spent that is to be directed towards getting people into a home?
So with our program, with the grant, it's that grant money spreads out over a lot of stuff. And I apologize, I'm not the grant administrator, but when someone comes to our campus, if you've been around Albuquerque a long time, the old Mats, where Mats is, it's now called the Care Campus. So if someone comes in a referral to our program, they get the whole umbrella of services we can offer them: supportive housing, helping them find a job, getting them clean, behavioral health needs, substance use disorder counseling. And a lot of our clients are homeless because I'm sure all of you know, a lot of that goes hand in hand with substance use disorder, homelessness, behavioral health issues. And that's who these officers are contacting a lot of the time.
So
I hope that answered your question, but yes, we do our best to get them into supportive housing.
I think it's probably a difficult question to answer because you're not checking every penny that you're spending. And, my point really was there's no place for people. So how is that money being used? But I think, was it my understanding that you actually get $250,000 a year from the behavioral health tax for case managers and other costs? And so then do you have any idea how many people are actually receiving mental health care as a result of this $250,000?
So the $250,000 through the behavioral health tax, which I was part of that when we first implemented it several years ago. So the $250,000 is allocated to the LEAD program for sustainment after the grant ends. So we have like our long-term strategic goals to keep LEAD going after the federal grant money ends. So that 250,000 could go to hiring 2 more case managers, which of course our case managers would get those people if it was appropriate into behavioral health services or help, if that makes sense.
So you're sort of banking that $250,000 at this point, trying to grow the dollars and have it for the future.
I don't have the answer to that, but I know there's that money's earmarked for that, from my understanding.
Okay, sorry, not fair to ask you so many money questions without preparing you for that. So then my question is, I'm curious, so you have these case managers that are being retained and hired, which is great, but do they stay in the office waiting for the people without transportation to come there to see them, or are they actively going out and trying to locate the people where they are in order to assist them?
Yes, absolutely. That was one of the things that I requested when we hired case managers was they have to be very field oriented. I wanted them out in the field looking for people. Sergeant Middleton can tell you my case managers have called, Officer Candelaria when they can't find somebody. My case managers, the county's case managers are out there looking for these people. I know just recently, one of our case managers assisted one of our clients to go get his driver's license. We also have phones. We gave him a phone to keep that contact and that intensive case management with these individuals. So long answer, but yes, they're very field oriented. We do go out into the field quite a bit.
Can I ask a question, Wanda?
Yes, Andrea, go ahead.
I'm hopefully, Glenn, you know the answer to this. I'm not sure if you do, but in 2019, only 12% of the need for mental health care in New Mexico was met, leaving 1.2 million New Mexicans without adequate access to mental health care. What do you think the city and state should do to provide additional resources for mental health?
Oh, that's a tough one. Obviously money. Money's the big one. We do have the behavioral health tax. I personally think we need a crisis triage center. Back when I was the lieutenant of crisis intervention, we went out to Pima County in Arizona, and I was just floored by how great their process was out there for helping people. They had a call center where people could call in instead of officers being dispatched to a home. The average stay was 27 hours out there, and then they could walk them to the hospital if they needed a higher level of care. We did implement, I assisted with the assisted outpatient treatment law that Governor Martinez signed into law. I think it was like 2016. So I think there's a lot more we can do, but everybody has to be on board with it. The judicial side, the police department, sheriff's department, behavioral health providers. I do think from my layman's point of view, there's a lot more we can do, but it just seems like money is always the issue.
I asked Officer Candelaria about the APD 75-1 app. I'm not sure if Commander Espinosa or his replacement. Is it Lieutenant Barraza? I apologize. I'm from Ohio. I can't troll the R's. Are the officers using that routinely? Is everyone being trained? Are they using it?
I'll answer that question, Commander Espinosa. So yes, that is something that was originally beta tested with the PRT units because of their high frequency of dealing with those types of incidents that would be relatable to a 75-1 application upload. But the entire department has since then transitioned, so it's in its full capacity. I have not pulled the numbers to find out how many specifically we've done, but the entire department has been trained. The entire department is using that application. It is something that we transitioned to. There was always a form that we did that had a community contact, but us implementing the application was just a transition to a new platform in order for us to be able to house and collect and analyze data better. That way we wouldn't have to do it longhand like we used to have to do it with an actual form. So that is something that is being used citywide amongst the police department in order to try and capture this data. Originally, the 75-1 was usually connected to a pre-planned community event, such as like a coffee with a cop or something in that fashion where we're gonna have something set up to meet with the community and go over specific issues of concern and then try to see if we can find ways to resolve those issues of concern. Since then, it has developed into a community contact type of application. That way we could capture a broader spectrum and have to everything from contacting, say, a group of people experiencing homelessness that need resources. And we have this people that we're contacting to come for outreach, these activists that will come and help us out. That's logged in the same repository through the app, as opposed to just the pre-planned events.
Okay, there's a question in the chat, and I'm going to ask that now because I think if I ask my next questions, we're going to go in a different direction. And I think this one is it's a good time to ask it. So Matt Cross Gillian, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. He is asking, when APD receives calls from people without a home, is it tracked who calls APD? Are many of the calls from businesses? And do the calls come through 911? Commander, and maybe.
So as of right now, all those calls go either through the 311 or 911 through our emergency communication center. As of right now, we have our ACS that's out and about. That's our assisting our police officers, our separate public safety division that you all should be aware of. It's been out active for a while. There's been a lot of talks about it, but all the initial calls come through our emergency communication center. Now, as far as where those calls are specifically coming from and if we track them, I can't answer that question. As far as I know, they are just going through emergency communications. They either get triaged through there and then they get filtered to whichever department is best to handle the situation. Sometimes it gets sent to solid waste if it's, say, an encampment that was left vacant and there's trash that needs to be picked up. There's an encampment that needs to be addressed that's, say, on public property that might go to ACS, or we might have some people experiencing homelessness that are on private property, say blocking a business, that would come to us because that would be considered possibly criminal trespass. So it's triaged through there, but I don't know how if they keep any type of data for analysis as far as who the callers and where the callers are coming from.
Okay. So
that would be a question probably for Erica Wilson.
Okay. Glenn, do you happen to know if Bernalillo County has a program similar to that app 75-1?
I do not know. The county is kind of a different animal from APD. I'm sure they might have something similar where they do track stuff. I mean, every modern department has a a crime analysis unit or how they pull numbers. But the commander's absolutely right. That'd be probably for their like dispatch supervisor or somebody to pull that info.
Okay, well, between the app and the leads program, it seems like the officers have a lot of power or ability to help a person change their way of life. What steps are you taking to change the get out of jail free mindset that prevents officers from embracing the efforts to redirect activities from criminal behavior to an effort to get medical assistance as needed and into stable sleeping conditions? And I acknowledge what our officer Candelaria said about some people just refuse it. But what can we do about the attitude of officers?
I think the attitude of officers, it's just through training and showing them what we've done over the years, at least from my experience and being on the outside looking in now, a lot of the efforts that we've done, like just book people, take them to jail, hasn't really worked. So when I put it in that context with officers and deputies, when we do this training, you can kind of see the light bulb go off that, we're trying something new. And with the lead program, it's purely discretionary for the officer to use it. Most officers have been very, very receptive to it. And that's kind of changing the mindset of these officers to this person would be better served by getting treatment and help and stable housing rather than this constant revolving door of jail, warrants, getting booked again. So I think that the training has actually gone really, really well, is teaching these officers how to kind of, it's a culture shift is what it really is, into changing the officer's mindset, I guess, of what I'm trying to say. But also on the flip side of that, if that person has to go to jail, take them to jail. But lead is out here as another option for them to use.
Can they go
I'd
to
like
lead?
to, sorry, Wanda, I'd just like to add a couple points to that if I could.
Certainly.
So yeah, Glenn is absolutely right on that. And to go even further, I think it takes strong leadership to set the foundation. When I was coming up through the police department, I know Glenn went through that too, because he mentioned it. It was just like, all we're focused on is the enforcing the law, taking people to jail. And I grew up under that type of enforcement. And as a young officer, that's what you become accustomed to. And with the evolving animal of policing that we have and the many hats that we wear as law enforcement officers, the culture has really changed. And that's something I think that's at the forefront of Southwest officers and Southwest PRT especially. And I'd like to try to set the tone and the foundation of we are here to help and make a difference, not just take people to jail. And I think as long as that foundation has been set and it's led from the front by the people at the top, then it starts to trickle down and have a ripple effect with the officers. Then in time, when they become leaders, they have that type of mentality with with officers that they have. And that's one of the things that, like Sergeant Middleton had mentioned, is that our first step forward is to help people in need. And by all means, if somebody breaks the law to the point where we don't have a choice but to take them to jail, but we want to leave the ball in that individual's court and not just say, well, we're the end all be all of this situation and you do what I say. It's like we want to put the ball in their court, empower them with the ability to make decisions to change their life. And if they choose to take those steps, then great for them. It helps them out in the long run. But eventually, if they choose not to, and it's to the point where we do have to enforce the law, then we don't have a choice. And we like to use that as a last resort. But I think it starts at the top with the leadership as well after the training to keep it sustainable.
Okay.
I agree with the commander 100%. And one more thing I'd add to that is, this idea of just get out of jail free card. What we really try to change with the officers and the deputies is frame it as this is a window of opportunity for this person to make a change in their lives. You know, it may take more than 1 or 2 contacts with that person. But our program is, we try to be as inclusive as we can.
Andrea, I have one quick question and then I'm going to let you go with the questions that I know you have. Okay.
Okay,
My quick question is, if you have to take them to jail, then that eliminates their ability to participate in lead.
Not necessarily. If that person absolutely has to go to jail that night, you know, and the officer books that person, but the officer still thinks they might be a good candidate for lead, they can do, ideally, we're trying to get away from jail and the criminal justice system. That's our main goal. But they still could make a lead referral to us as long as they weren't arrested on a violent felony or any one of our exclusionary crimes.
Okay, Andrea, go for it.
Okay. I don't know if this is gonna, if Commander Espinosa or Glenn, if you are, Kevin, if you guys can answer this question. What qualifies an officer to make the decision on who is selected for the lead program? And 2-part question, how do you prevent an officer from not selecting a member of the Bipoc community to become a part of the program?
Commander, you want me to answer that?
Sorry, yeah, go ahead. You can go ahead and start. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So again, this is purely discretionary upon the officer. If it's a nonviolent felony, a misdemeanor, we even take, if it's felony shoplifting, felony narcotics possession, we pretty much take anything if the officer wants to refer them, absent of, you know, child crimes or violent felonies. And then I didn't understand the second part of your question, Andrea.
How do you prevent an office? Okay, well, first, I mean, so what qualifies an officer to make that choice? And do they go through training? How much training do they go through to make the decision on, is this person qualified to be part of the lead program or are they not? How do they make that selection?
Yeah, so that's addressed in training. And again, I keep beating this, but it's purely discretionary, but the officers do get the training. So all the PRT teams are trained up in it. The field training officers are going to get training in lead so they can basically do a train the trainer for their recruit officers. We're going to do that in November and December. And then right now we've been going out to just the regular rank and file and doing briefings for lead. That if the officer feels it's appropriate, they can go ahead and make that referral.
Okay, and then also, how do you prevent an officer from not selecting a member of the BIPOC community for the lead program versus somebody who is white into the lead program? I know this is more of a racial stance on it.
Well, it's actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Lead started in Seattle because of a huge racial disparity. With enforcement and everything. So that's how lead was started. As far as, you know, people getting arrested for minor drug crimes, and it was a racial disparity they found. Here, I will be honest with you, I have not seen that. All the lead referrals that come in, it's all walks of life. White, Hispanic, African-American, Pacific Islander, multi-racial. We just don't have that problem here. From my point of view, running the program, and I look at all the referrals that come in, it's everybody that can be referred, or I've seen be referred. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you. I appreciate that. Do you have any other questions, Wanda? You're on mute.
Sorry, my brother's television was making extra loud noise, so I thought I'd mute myself. I think we're to the point where we wanted to bring in Rachel and perhaps talk about the Hopeworks statement of love, which does touch on the fact that race is a factor for homelessness, and it seems like the minorities have the largest percentage of homelessness. Rachel, any comments for us?
I think I would alter what you said just a little bit, is that Black, Indigenous, and people of color are disproportionately represented in the population of folks experiencing homelessness, not just here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but nationally. And if you, I know you wanted to touch on the causes of homelessness and related to what you just said. Of course, this isn't the only cause, but it is certainly a factor that the impact of racial inequality over centuries in this country have led to systemic denial of rights and socioeconomic opportunities that then lead to circumstances in which folks end up being or experiencing homelessness. So that's really, I think, what you're referring to is our statement of intense and profound love, in which we have made the connection between racism and homelessness.
Hi, Rachel. How are you doing?
Good to see you again.
Yes, you too. Again, just want to say I love your statement of intense and profound love. But I wanted to ask you a question. What percentage of homeless people in Albuquerque are part of the Bipoc community? And can you explain why that percentage is so high?
I don't have those numbers right in front of me. I was looking at them before I came, but I did not print them out, and I'm at home. But I can definitely send the link to where you can find those in a few minutes. I can do that. And Kevin probably has access to this information too. But the New Mexico Coalition to End Homelessness conducts what's called a point in time count every year. And what that does, and maybe Kevin, you want to jump in here, is it goes out and a whole host of volunteers and staff actually count the number of people who are experiencing homelessness in Albuquerque on a given night in the wintertime. And so self-reporting, folks will self-report how they identify, and that's where those numbers come in. You can definitely see in those numbers that there's an overrepresentation within categories of folks identifying as Black, Indigenous, people of color, as it relates to the proportion of those folks in the community. Kevin, do you want to add anything to what I just said?
Sure. I also don't have it right in front of me. I was actually just trying to look through emails to grab the report real quick. But it is accessible. I'm sure it's probably on our website. But I can say that when we did our last count this year, it was not able to be done well because of COVID. So it's better probably to refer to the prior count in 2019. And one thing that really stood out in that count is that 40% of people that were outdoors were Native American. That was the really big number. And there was, this very disproportional number of people of color out there. There's definitely, in general, like Rachel said, in our town and across the U.S., more people of color that are outside and in shelter. So definitely.
Okay, well, thank you. My next question, either for Rachel or for Kevin. Society seems to be judgmental when it comes to the LGBTQIA+ community. Children are being pushed out of their homes and onto the streets. Also, landlords are unwilling to rent to them. Have you seen an increase in homeless people who are part of the LGBTQIA+ community?
I can say definitely to that. So just to give a little bit of background and highlight what I do. So I work as a lead housing navigator for the coordinated entry system. So we're kind of the hub to the system. As people get identified, they come to us. Part of our triage tool does identify race and gender preference, and we actually just even upgraded a nuanced, even more detailed version of identity preference. But we have been collecting preference for trans for a while, and then I'm doing housing navigation specifically for people that are chronically homeless and vulnerable, which a lot of folks that are transgender are showing up on my list, and I'm housing them. So we work with the entire system. And so, of course, like with the Transgender Resource Center and other agencies like First Nations or Hopeworks or anybody that might be might have somebody that's a trans client. So we are seeing a significant number of people. And you know, what's interesting is that I've worked with a lot of case managers, and some case managers really have the ability to build better relationships, I would say, with that population. And so quite honestly, the access and the inflow to the system and the identification of those folks depends on who builds relationships. But in general, we're definitely seeing a lot more of that population. They're definitely not comfortable with going to a lot of the mainstream services, like the big main shelters. They don't feel safe there. So they're gonna hang out in havens like Transgender Resource Center or just other case managers that they build relationships with.
And do you guys have, I'm assuming you have resources with the Transgender Resource Center that will help connect individuals to either Hopeworks or to the LEAD program, right?
Yeah, they do an excellent job. We've worked closely with them for a long time, and they have good staff and good leadership. And I think they do an excellent job, just trying to do everything that they can, from food to clothing to networking. They're an excellent organization, and try to do a lot with what they have.
Yeah, I agree. I have multiple friends that are part of that resource center, and they do an amazing job. I completely agree with you. Did you have anything to add to that question, Rachel?
No, I think Kevin did a great job. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So I just have one more question. There are multiple resources, or I'm sorry, there are multiple reasons why people become unhoused, such as medical bills, addiction, mental illness, injury, and or loss of a job. It appears we need to provide additional programs to help the unhoused. Do you think the city and state should provide employers and landlords with a stipend or tax break to hire and provide housing to people?
I could speak to that some. Definitely a resounding yes. And I would say that we need to be able to provide an entire set of incentives to property managers. And quite honestly, we needed to find out that through a discovery process and find out what property managers are motivated by, because we don't quite honestly know. We know that the market's changed a lot. We've just for example, we have 150 people through our system that have vouchers right now that are out in the community trying to find property managers to accept their voucher. So It's a challenging situation. Our average time for people with a voucher to get housed is 90 days. And so clearly it's pointing out we need some incentives for property managers to be able to house people and to develop properties, a whole host of things. And so I think there's a lot of possible, incentives for that. Different cities around the United States have tried different things. But I think in Albuquerque, we just kind of need to be dialing that in and trying to figure that out immediately through just kind of a multi-pronged approach. So go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, that's great. I would agree with that. And I think, I think a lot of times we think about homelessness as an individual problem, and the problem lies within the individual who is homeless. But I think that is quite inaccurate. I think homelessness is a community problem, and so it demands a community solution. And if we, you look at a budget of a home or a city or country, and where money is put is what we care about and what there's political will to fund. And there are places where homelessness doesn't exist. So it's not a foregone conclusion that in any community there are homeless people or people experiencing homelessness. So I would strongly agree with any effort to provide incentives and funding to make sure that the fact of, from my perspective, that housing is a human right, that would actually be fulfilled.
Thank you. Thank you both. I appreciate that.
So is it just a matter of not having enough housing in Albuquerque? Is that our problem, or is it that people are selective in who they rent to? I mean, I think Kevin did the bathtub analogy when we spoke the other day, and I don't know if he wants to talk about that today or not, but how do we find our way out of this?
So yeah, that's a big question. That's kind of a multifaceted question. And I think one of the things that's important to think about is we need to kind of think about it in terms of demographics a lot of times. For example, right next door to me, my counterpart that serves families is constantly looking for housing for families. We're talking 3 and 4 bedrooms. And if you're talking about placing families with vouchers in 3 or 4 bedrooms, there's an extreme shortage. And so our families are waiting extra long times on wait lists just to possibly, get connected. And then if there were further issues like that family had past evictions or misdemeanors or felonies or poor rental history, the list goes on, then it's going to be even harder. And so that's just one example. And then we could move on to lots of other examples. To one big need is that we have a lot of people with high service need that can't really live on their own very well. And we just have a huge gap in our system where those people just really have nowhere to go. Property managers can't have people coming and tearing up their property, and, just people that can't live on their own. So we've got to develop those kinds of solutions out there. And those are just some specific hard areas, not to mention the people that I was just talking about that are maybe just individuals that are going out and trying to place their voucher. So we need incentives in various different ways for those people. And people that are really dialing into these demographics that need to be served better in kind of a more strategic development for those particular areas.
Did you want to add anything, Rachel?
I would just offer too that, on top of housing, support services are really essential for some folks. Right. So we talk about and we follow a housing first model. So you don't have to meet all these qualifications. You don't have to not be, not be using substances. You don't have to be, have your mental health issues all taken care of, so to speak. But we promote getting housed first and then supporting folks with all the other needs that they might have to stay housed and to stay housed safely and securely. So that's what I would add.
So it seems to me that I can be very naive, but it seems to me that if we had places where people could have a good night's sleep and sleep safely, then perhaps they could begin to think about other things that they may want to change in their life. Then maybe they would be more amenable to staying sober and more amenable to getting in to mental health treatment if that's what they need. So how do we jump that not in my backyard when no one wants any of these helpful facilities near where they live? What do we do?
So I just wanted to, and Wanda, I mentioned that this might be a possibility, and actually got word this afternoon that the city was moving on. So I was happy to see it. So I think I like your question, and I think one thing that is important to think about is that the pathway for people to be able to get to housing and those services includes a lot of people. I just pulled up the numbers from my list. These are just numbers of people we've identified. This is by no means the full number of people that are out there, but just in our system, just the people we've identified through our triage tool, which is kind of the tool that we try to use. We had about 926 individuals this last year and 131 families. That's just who's active in our system. When we can't find people, we actually are putting them on pause and inactivating them. So that's just who's active, so 1,000 some individuals, and we're only housing a small percentage of those just because of housing capacity. So to your point, if we're going to kind of use Maslow's hierarchy of needs and sort of give some people a degree of stability so that they can even think about wanting to seek housing, or mental health or substance use treatment, then we have to create some kind of stability, even for our people that are unhoused, or in shelter, or some degree of stability, so they can even begin to wrap their head around, staying consistent with some kind of service like this. So I was really happy to see that the city did work with a provider called the Compassion Service Center in the Southeast to start at least piloting, putting up a larger tent and having a single spot for people to stably like pitch a tent kind of inside the bigger tents, provide. And so it's already an access point for services. We actually work really closely with them ourselves. And so that kind of setup can put people in a stable place that are not going to be going to the shelter. They're right next to a service provider. Now they can begin to have some stability to work on housing and services. So I was really glad to see that kind of development. I think that's the kind of thing that we need. Right now, we've had a policy because of ordinance, and I think Family and Community Services have just kind of moved people around a lot. I shouldn't say Family and Community Services. Multiple departments in the city department have moved people around a lot just with current policy, and so we just don't have that stability. So we, as a large system with these 1,000+ people, we need to be able to kind of think about stability if we're going to engage them in services. And to the point of the officer earlier, people disengage from services, and we actually have to work really hard, and we have a lot of strategies about reconnecting that we have to use. And it has been exceptionally tough when we had 2 city workers moving people around all the time. And I'm not trying to just blame, I'm talking as a matter of fact, all these officers in different departments were just moving people around, and we just couldn't connect people to services, quite honestly. I lost touch with quite a large number of people because of that. So it's one of those things that we really need to think more progressively about. Denver and some of these other cities are doing bigger camps, trying to create some kind of degree of stability for this kind of approach. So I feel like we're finally getting the things moving. I know another couple leaders in our organization are going to be promoting families having maybe a place to park safely. We're just going to be proposing that kind of a thing, trying to help with that kind of thinking. So yeah, I feel like we're just starting to get in some traction on doing that kind of thing.
Ironically, I was at the Compassion Service Center just the other day and was able to meet Pastor Joanne Landry, I believe is her name. And so it will be a tent with just cots inside. I think she said 24, and it will be open 24/7. It'll be heated. There'll be a microwave where people can, providing they have donated food, people will be able to get a cup of something warm or something to eat. And that is an amazing place to know that those people, she also has the double wide where they come, I believe it was Monday through Thursday from 1 to 7, and they can come in and rest. They had cots, they can play games, they can eat, they can, there's restrooms. She's getting toilets delivered, not toilets, showers. They're getting portable showers very, very soon. It was an amazing place, and I don't understand why we can't have more of those in all the vacant lots that we have. Because perhaps if we did have places like that, when our officers encounter these individuals that don't want to go far, far away, they would have a place nearby where they could maybe stabilize and then jump on the leads wagon and try to change their life. But I'm confused as to why Albuquerque doesn't seem to be able to do better. Rachel?
I would just also suggest that while those can be, a good step, I would hope that we wouldn't, as a community, hang our hat and say, okay, we're done, because that is temporary still. And I think, just aligning with what I said earlier, is that permanent housing and that everyone is housed, for me, would be the ultimate goal. And I would also say, in a little bit of a different vein, just thinking about in terms of people, I've heard a lot of phrasing around people refusing services or having a hard time or not wanting to, or things like that. And I think about even in my life, or perhaps even myself at times. And I've always been housed. I've always had enough to eat. I've always had plenty. I know I have been privileged in that way. And people in my life who have had the same kind of situation, or even myself, have also not wanted to do what we needed to do to move ourselves forward, whether it was substance use or mental health issues or whatnot. So I just really want to take that little brief moment to humanize the folks that we are talking about who are, I'm assuming, not in this room. Perhaps there are some people experiencing homelessness in this room, I don't know. But we are all human, and we all make choices. And I can imagine, if a member of my family is resisting dealing with something and they're housed, that a person who has all of this other stuff to deal with and perhaps a lot of trauma from a lot of different things is also going to resist. So I'll stop there, but I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you're absolutely right. There's no disagreeing with anything that you've just said. And I think what I liked about the Compassion Service Center is recognizing that it is temporary. But it was so uplifting, I'll use that word, to see those individuals treated with such respect. And, I'm going to start crying. That was just so uplifting to see someone willing to take the time to treat them as human beings and provide services for them. I mean, for someone to be excited that they're getting a new pair of jeans, I mean, it's just very overwhelming for me. And it's heartbreaking to me that we aren't able to do better here in Albuquerque. So I think we're maybe getting a little close to 7:30. Does anybody else, any of our guests, wait, we have one more question that we should ask. And it's like, do we have data, and it's Matt again, do we have data about if people becoming homeless from getting kicked out of rentals or not able to pay mortgages? So is it some people that have wealth and that they have a home, or is it mostly people that can't even have a mortgage and they're just renters? Do we know those statistics?
My guess that would be that one of the major hubs now that the state's created is Rent Help New Mexico, to kind of sort of connect people to those resources for preventing homelessness. And so they're probably collecting data on that question. It would be my best guess that that's where I'd go if I was going to get that information.
Okay, Andrea, any more questions? Anybody, any other panel member or council members have a question they want to ask?
I just wanted to say thank you to everybody, to Rachel Rodriguez. What you said at the end there hit the nail on the head for me. I have a personal experience, which is why I want to be on video today, because it's a pretty moving thing to think about people that are out there, Anyhow, and I wanted to say congratulations also to Commander Espinosa on his retirement, and look forward to working with the commander. And thank you everybody for tonight's meeting as well.
Andrea?
No more questions. Thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking your time out on this evening.
Yes.
And Wanda, I just wanted to add one last thing, is for the LEAD program is now open to community members to make referrals now. So it's not just law enforcement that's doing referrals. Providers, business owners, family members can refer somebody to LEAD if that person is wanting the help for a resource and is consenting to getting a LEAD referral. So everybody can make LEAD referrals now.
Thank you for reminding me. I did forget that part of it, but can you tell us how we initiate that referral?
You can go to the DBHS website for Bernalillo County. It's I believe it's Department of Behavioral Health Services, DBHS, and you can click on, I think it's a tab to the left, and you can find the LEAD program, and then you can electronically fill out the form, and then it goes directly to our case managers.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to share anything? I want to thank Commander Espinosa. We're going to miss you terribly. Thank you, Sergeant Middleton, Candelaria, and Officer Duthridge for joining us this evening. We really appreciate you. We love it when our officers can come and spend time with us. It's so meaningful and adds so much to our time together. Rachel, thank you so much. Kevin, you guys have so much to teach us, and we have such a small amount of time to learn it. And there's still very many things that we need to be doing as civil residents of the county or in the state of Albuquerque or city of Albuquerque and the state of New Mexico. So anybody else want to say anything before I turn it over to Teresa and she gets us adjourned and out of here?
I was going to make a quick comment if that's okay, Wanda. One thing that I've noticed in looking at our system kind of through we have access to a lot of data, and so we look at it in a lot of different ways. And there's quite a difference in some organizations' culture and approaches and problem solving. And I think it's good to highlight that there are some approaches that have been developed in some of these, really progressive and proactive organizations, and it really changes the way that people flow through the system. And I think that it's important, if we're going to develop solutions, that we really do have some sort of data-centric measures of, especially, and Wanda was kind of alluding to it and I didn't get at it, but flow rates through the system are a really good measure of performance. So for example, the number of people flowing from contact with an agency where they're applying for a housing program and then they're getting moved in. So what's the flow rate per month into housing, for example? And some agencies do that really fast, and they do it with much higher number of people, and others don't, and don't do it as well, I should say. And so I think when we develop solutions, we have to have solutions that are driving these metrics in a particular direction. So sometimes we create more of something, but it's not necessarily driving a metric in the right direction. And I think that in terms of policy and organizational development, I think we need to hold ourselves accountable to those and those practices that are moving the metrics in the right directions. And we have some great people out there that have kind of developed some of those solutions. And so I think that is a significant part in moving things forward, is to really bring the system together surrounding these kind of flow metrics. And so we can really get a snapshot of how things are really performing and then tweak our system accordingly.
Rachel, do you want to mention your Hope Village? We didn't touch on the fact that Hopeworks has a Hope Village.
Sure, really quickly. So Hope Village is a 42 unit single supportive permanent single, sorry, I'm getting tired, is a 42 unit permanent supportive housing project that will be finished in the next very short while. And we are informing folks who have been selected through a lottery. I have heard this week we're informing them. And so hopefully folks will be moving in the first of the new year after all the permits are pulled and everything. But it's really, really exciting. So it's really what I've been talking about here is what we need is permanent supportive housing for folks who need that, right? Not everybody needs support. They just need a home. But for folks who do, this is going to house 42 of, the many, many folks who need that type of housing. So we're really excited about it. And thanks for mentioning it, Wanda.
Sure. Okay, Teresa.
Thank you all so much for the fantastic topic and everything that was said tonight. And it is, I really appreciate, Rachel, and what you said earlier, that in really humanizing, when somebody's ready, they're ready. And just giving them the space and the time when they're ready, give them the support that they need and just give them understanding while they're going through it. So thank you for stating that. So we do have one more thing thing to cover tonight for our agenda. Unfortunately, Nicole Rogers could not join us this evening, but I did want to go ahead and share the information that may be beneficial for those that are joining us on Facebook and on this Facebook Live. The city of Albuquerque is hosting some block parties that are happening in each area of Albuquerque. For November, they are going to be hosted here in the Southwest specifically. So they offer a variety of resources that can be beneficial for those that are seeking services like rent assistance, food, things like that. And then it is November, so Thanksgiving, there will be a food drive at the end of the month. And so I'm going to go ahead and put that link in the chat if you all would be interested. We are also seeking people who would like to participate and be a vendor, quote unquote vendor, but just be there to provide and give resources. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly to just go over the website or the page for the city of Albuquerque, and then we'll go ahead and adjourn the night. And so if you would like to learn more about what's being offered and what's going to be at the block parties in the Southwest, you can go ahead and head to the link that I offered or I placed in the chat. These are the organizations or community organizations that will be present. And so we thank all of those that have submitted the application and are participating. And so there's just a number of these. I'm just going to scroll as slowly as possible so I don't make anybody nauseous. So there are quite a bit of resources here. These are the flyers. We have also posted these on our Southwest Community Policing Council Facebook page. I had to put the plug in there. Please follow us as we are now going Facebook Live moving forward, and we're really excited to really increase our accessibility for our communities as we move into hybrid, or who knows what happens with this global pandemic. But you can head over to this website or our Facebook page. They are Saturdays from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. We will have our Southwest Community Policing Council table there. I believe Kelly and Martisa will be there, or some of our council members will also be present at some of these dates in November. And so it is from 12 to 3. If you have any questions, you can call Nicole Rogers. And then these are the locations. So November 6th is our first Southwest CPC event, block party. It's going to be held at Tower Park. The next one would be November 13th at Alamosa Community Center, November 20th at West Mesa Community Center, and then November 27th, as mentioned, is going to be a food box event. And so if you know anybody that might want to collaborate or support or be a part of this, please let them know. And we would love to have our community come out and attain these resources. They are filling in applications on the spot. I mean, it's a fantastic event that Nicole Rogers and the city of Albuquerque has put together. There's also another link when you are up top that you can, if you're a community organization and would love to offer resources, there is a part of it where you can plug in your information and submit the application, and you'll get the information for the event. So please share this as much as you can within your communities. Again, they're really focusing on having these monthly block parties. So again, November is going to be in the Southwest. And so we look forward to having you all there. I'm going to go ahead and check the chat. I see a couple of people. Oh, perfect. And so Kelly went ahead and put the other dates on there. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. So we really hope to have you all attend. And if you know anybody, or again, that would love to participate, please share it with them. We would love to see you there. Other than that, I believe that that's pretty much it for the night. And so again, thank you all for being here and for participating in this topic and really increasing awareness within our communities. And we hope to see you all for our December meeting, which will be continuing the conversation with Wanda and Andrea. And again, if you would like to also become a member of the Southwest Community Policing Council, please let us know. You can also head over to the City of Albuquerque website to learn more about the CPCs in Albuquerque. We're always looking for new council members and people that would want to be involved. And so please let us know that's a possibility. And we hope to see you all, and follow us on Facebook, share the links, and we will see you all soon. And so is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? If there's nothing else.
So moved.
All right, perfect. Is there a second? All right, perfect. Wanda and Andrea, I see you there. All right, so our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for being here with us, and we hope to see you all next month in December.
All right, thank you all. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.